Welcome, everybody. I'm Brad Alexander with the Dad Pod, and that is the Dad Bod. Take away the B, insert the P, because we all know when you get to be my age, you get to have the Dad Bod. Hey, folks, I am a local realtor in the Austin area. Me and my wife own a real estate team called the Alexander Home Team, and I recently started this live cast / podcast of the Dad Pod. What is the Dad Pod? The Dad Pod is, I feel like in the last couple of years, and maybe not the last couple of years, maybe it's been my entire life, because I grew up in a small town or back when it was a small town, Kyle, Texas. It's not so small anymore. But whatever people said about someone at the local coffee shop was good as gold. I mean, that whether it was true or not, that is what it was. And so over the last couple of years, I feel like we've lived in a society to where, we judge a book by its cover. We judge you by the color of your hair, the clothes you wear, where you live, and those types of things. So, hey, why not get to know one person at a time, building relationships, one conversation at a time? So the Dad Pod was born. All right. So this is the Dad Pod with Brad Alexander, presented to you by the Alexander Home Team, Keller Williams. And without further ado, who is Tina Salazar?
Hi, everybody. My name is Tina Salazar. I am starting my second year here as the principal of Hayes High School. I've been in education for 32 years. I was born and raised in Lockhart, Texas, literally born in Lockhart. Grew up in that small town, competed against Hayes my whole life from middle school all the way up until high school. So I have friends that grew up in Hayes. Brad is good friends with my brother. So that's how I've known him. So Lockhart's close. And so I've known many people who lived in Kyle and Buda my entire life. Moved to Buda, to Kyle, 14 years ago. So my daughter, Mackenzie, my younger daughter, was raised here and graduated and went to Kilgore to be a Kilgore Rangerette. And now she's currently at Loyola Chicago, where she's dancing. My older daughter is married. She's a realtor in New Braunfels with her husband and my 3 grandkids. I'm a grandparent. Kennedy, they all have presidents' names. Kennedy is a 4-year-old, and the twin boys, Carter and Lincoln, are 3.
So she talked about her family. Yes, I was college roommates twice, folks, with Eric De La Cruz, also known as Turtle D. Turtle D, because he is the slowest at doing anything in the history of mankind. Tell you a little short story about your dad, Tina. So Tina's dad was the trainer for many moons at Lockhart High School, with the famous quote of "Put ice on it."
Yes.
Tina's dad was the trainer at Lockhart High School. And so I used to be a coach at both Gonzales and Del Valle. And so Lockhart was on our schedule for quite a few years. And your dad came up with this bet that whoever lost paid for barbecue.
Yes.
I will say that I did not pay for very much barbecue. Don't want to go into details there. I don't want to get Jimmy mad at me, but I did not pay for very much barbecue from Smitty's, because when you're from Lockhart, you have to be in allegiance with one barbecue place. So we always went to Smitty's. But the funny story is when I was at Del Valle, and Del Valle's basketball team was pretty good at the time, and it was the last time we were going to play. We had just moved up to 5A. The enrollments had came out. So we knew this was going to be the last time that we were in the district with Lockhart. And your dad brought me at the end of the game. I swear to you, your dad brought me and the head coach, Marvin Hall, a barbecue sandwich, and said he never wanted to see us in the gym ever again. So
that sounds about right. I can hear that. I can hear that. Yeah.
So yes, folks, I've known Tina's family for years. I really haven't known Tina all that. I mean, I've known Eric very well. And her dad, Tina, was always the older sister, and that. So, talk to us about the beginning of your teaching career. Have you always been a teacher? What did you teach? Tell us about your educational career and how that went after Lockhart, Texas.
Sure. So I went to St. Edward University, majored in English writing. I played softball there for a year or two, if I can remember that far back, because I'm old. I am the older sister. I am older than Brad and my brother. So then I coached everything. I was in junior high for 4 years. God bless all middle school coaches, because one after the other, right? We went from volleyball season to basketball season to track. It's just year round. There's not a break. So I did that for 4 years, and I coached everywhere: Lockhart, Deer Park, Klein, New Braunfels, and Austin in Aiken. So over my 32 years, I coached seventh grade English. I taught seventh grade English and did volleyball, basketball, and track. Then eighth grade English, volleyball, basketball, track. And then I went into high school where I taught mostly ninth graders, ninth grade English, um, and coached volleyball, basketball. But I was head coach of softball for 12 years across at New Braunfels, Clearbrook, Clear Creek. I was at Clear Creek. So I was at Clearbrook. That was my first head coach job there as a softball coach. Then I moved to Aikens for 2 years, and then I went to New Braunfels for 3, back to Aikens, where I then transitioned out of coaching and started becoming an instructional coach, a department chair, an assistant principal, and then principal.
Well, I transitioned out of coaching in 2000. I tell people my last year of coaching was Baker Mayfield senior year.
Oh, wow.
I tell people that Baker got me to retire from coaching. And the reason why I say retire, because I'm not going back. Right. I did 4 months of an internship of being an assistant principal. We had a assistant principal on, and somebody you may know, I'm Mr. Lipton. Did you know Lipton from Austin ISD? He was.
I know that name.
So we had a assistant principal that went on FMLA. So I spent 4 months being. Lipton took me out of the classroom, took away all my classes, and gave me an assistant principal's office and everything. But he didn't give me assistant principal's pay. I had to stay on my teacher's pay, and I did all the duties and everything.
Oh, wow.
And with the agreement that if I did a good job, the next time a job came open, I was going to be hopefully first in line. Well, he kind of got relieved of duties that summer. And to be quite honest with you, my last week on the job, I had a parent that literally called me every morning at 8 a.m. to tell me a few choice words. And so my experience as an assistant principal, I was like, man, listen, this is hard work. You don't get to spend a lot of time with the good kids. You're always dealing with kids that are in, like my friends that are cops. They always tell me, say, Brad, we don't get invited to birthday parties.
Right.
So yeah, I transitioned away from it, and you transitioned away from it. And I personally feel that, coaches and band directors and those people make great leaders, great real. So if you ever want to get out of being principal at Hayes, I think coaches and those people make great realtors as well. So there you go. You can always join the Alexander home team when your days are done being a high school principal. But let's not do that. I got 2 daughters going through, so you can't make that decision for a while now. So how is life at Hayes High School?
It's fantastic. It is very different when people ask me, oh, it must be so drastic, do you miss Aikens? I do miss it, but it's not comparable. It's comparing it two different, completely different places with completely different needs. So it is not a comparable experience. So I never compare that. My time at Aikens, I loved it. It was good work. It was hard work, but it was good work. But it's not comparable to the job today, to what my current position. I love it. I love this community. I raised my child here. Um, I love running into people that I've known in a different capacity, and they're like, "You're the principal." I'm like, "I know, isn't that so crazy?" So it's but knowing that I have their babies here, that my daughter danced with for years, it's just been so heartwarming and wonderful to, to graduate them or have them here, and they're like, I can't believe you're my principal. I'm like, I can't believe it either, but I love every moment of it. So just having that connection of knowing some of our students, I've known them since they're little bitty and now they're here. It's just been really heartwarming and lovely. And our school is so special. It really is. And, we talk about it all the time about not taking this wonderful place for granted and doing everything we can to protect and keep that safe, this very special thing that we have. And I wish I could put my finger on it, but I really can't, Brad. Like my admin team, we've talked about this many times, like not really being able to put a finger on why it's special. But it really is. So we just continue to preach about this collective community that we have, and we're all responsible for maintaining why it's special. I hope that makes sense. I hope I was able to communicate that.
It does, and I've been on committees, the Hayes Education Foundation, the FBOC.
Sure.
Me and Stephanie, just whenever I stepped away from the world of education, and we started the Alexander Home Team, I wanted to stay involved. I always had a problem with those people that talked bad about the school district but didn't know exactly the nuts and bolts of what was going on, because nothing can be perfect, right? There's no perfect house. There's no perfect school. And so I wanted to jump in and see those. And what I've told people multiple times, I think all the Hayes school districts are great. I prefer Hayes. I put my kids in Hayes, and the reason why I chose Hayes, because I think one of the reasons I've always been proud of it is it's a very diverse school. We have, we have wealthy families, not so wealthy families, every skin color out there known to mankind. We've got kids wearing cowboy boots. We've got people having purple hair. It's a very diverse school, which is the country that we live in. I did not want my kids going to a school to where everybody was just one shape, one color, one of those things. So I've always liked, and then I think that secret sauce is some of the just school tradition. I mean, the school pride. I once had a principal come to me and say, "How can we were at Del Valley?" And he said, "How can we increase? What does this school need?" And I said, "School needed pride. If kids were prideful of where they went to school, they would probably go to school more." And so we talked about how to make a school more prideful. But I think there's always been, to be honest with you, I think through time and kids are way more involved, and there's so much more to do. Back whenever me and you were in school, Lockhart, Texas, on a Friday night, you went to a football game.
That's correct.
When I was coaching in Gonzales, Texas, on a Tuesday night, junior high football game, you went to a football. I mean, when the stadium lights were on, the whole town was there, and that's kind of used to be at Hayes and Lockhart, to where when the stadium, the little kids were playing football underneath the bleachers, and the parents were in the stands. Student sections were always very enjoyable. That I think that community, and you used the word community. I think we have, even though we continuously redraw lines for this high school and that high school, and we've got high school number 5 coming somewhere, and so we continuously, but Hayes somehow keeps the community feel, and that's a credit to you and your staff. So what are some highlights? What are some things that you're proud of at being your last year of being the principal at Hayes High School? What are some things you want to tell people that, little advertisement, marketing, what are we doing good at Hayes right now with the kids
Wow.
and those types of things?
So much. Wow, that's a big question. I think for me, my goal is to really try hard for the kids to know who I am. And so I really try. I think sometimes they think it's weird because I will just insert myself in their conversations, and they're like, "Who is this lady?" And then they're like, "Oh, you're Miss." Okay, now that you know. But our kids are so nice. They really are, and that's a credit to our families. But I think one of the things we do well is our kids really listen. I think they know. I mean, and their voice is super important to me because I'm in the process of starting a principal roundtable so that I'm talking to kids about what they think because that's what parents think, what our community thinks. That's really important to me. I want their input, but I think just that we have that open dialogue between them and us and that we continue to have conversations. Um, I don't like to ignore the elephant in the room. Like if it's there, we're going to talk about it and I want to hear what you think because I want you to know what you think matters to me. So, because it's the truth. And I want to take that into account of our decision making. So, when you talk about the great things that are going on here, there are vast. That is like there's so much. Our band is amazing. If you haven't seen which is which, please come check that out. They just got superior ratings at I don't know what that would be called, district. They're on their way to area. That's October 28th, and I believe that they're performing around 4:45 in Pflugerville at the PF field, PF field, P field. I'm
It's
not
it's
sure what that's.
yeah, they call it P field, I believe. Yeah, P
Okay.
field.
So that's and guard, like it's just the show is amazing. Our parents who are loading that up, I watch our parents all the time who are just doing such a phenomenal job helping our kids. So that dedication is just amazing. I try to thank them as much as possible because without them, that's just not possible, right? So that goes back to that community thing. Our football team is really trying their best out there fighting every single day. We have Wagner tonight and I know like our kids are just going to come out there fighting. Our volleyball team is still out there fighting, trying to get that on. We had a student in cross country qualify for regionals. Our speech and debate team, historically, if you don't know, we had a two-time state champion last year. He actually won in two different categories. He's the state champion in UIL speech and debate in two different categories. I don't think we've ever had that happen. Um, but they're doing phenomenal right now. Our water polo team both qualified for our area. Our water polo boys were the district champions, and they won by district. They're by district champs and went on to area. They didn't keep going, but they still did, phenomenally well. I'm trying to think. There's so many great things going on. It's hard to remember.
Here's one for you. I took the tour of
Oh,
Hayes last year, and I came to find out that ROTC has a shooting range
yes,
within the school.
yes,
Now, guys, don't be afraid. This isn't. They're not shooting
no,
high-powered bullets. It's a pellet type of bullet. But one of the best shooters in the nation is at Hayes High School. And guys, when y'all watch this, I mean, this was amazing. Just the fact that we have this on campus,
yes,
and the fact that probably the number one shooter in the nation goes to school at our local school. It really was. And then we went, and then on my tour from that, we left that and we went to the I don't even know the terminology, the cop class where
oh
they
yeah,
study the
criminal
criminal
justice.
justice.
Yes,
And this kid, so I go from one classroom and a kid is shooting an air gun, like hitting a bullseye that is the size of a nickel. I mean, this thing is little bitty. And then the next class I go to, there is a criminal justice classroom, and they have a virtual reality goggles on them, and the rest of the class can see on the screen, and they bring up scenarios on shoot or not shoot type of scenarios, and the kids actually have a a Nintendo type of gun in their hand. And so the one that we saw was an active shooter in a theater. And so the kid that I saw do this, he had to be the first cop. His role was the first cop on the scene for an active shooter in a theater. I mean, just some real life. I mean, when we were in school, we didn't have any of those real life situations. And then we went to one of the ag class, to the vet class, and they were washing dogs.
Yes.
So just a lot of different hands-on things going on within the school district. You know, it's not just football, band, theater anymore. No. There is, like we've talked before, you know, I have two daughters that, you know, I was a very traditional person from a small town, football, baseball, right? Do all that. And then God blesses me with two daughters that do not fit the traditional boxes. My youngest daughter goes to a charter school at the gym. She's in the gym at 7 a.m. to 10 a.m., school from 10 to 3, and then back in the gym from 3 to 6. Mm-hmm. Craziness. She'll end up going to Hayes. They don't have a high school at Olympia Hill, so those kids end up going to Hayes. And so that will be, and then Brooklyn is out barrel racing in the state of Texas. And so, you know, I had two kids that didn't meet those traditional boxes, and the ROTC kid and the criminal justice kid we're able to have a school now that allows the kids that don't check off those traditional boxes to still have a reason to enjoy coming to school every day.
Absolutely. And there's more, right? Like there's welding, there's construction, there's aerospace engineering. We're looking at drone classes now, where possibly in the future we have a drone team. Who knew that? Like these are cosmetology, culinary. We have two full-on beautiful kitchens that our kids cook in every day. Yeah, it blows my mind. Like we had math and science, and typing. Remember typing?
Yeah. I taught typing.
Oh, really?
I taught typing, and then we transitioned into what we called BCIS, business communication. Right. I taught, which it basically was Microsoft Office, you know, PowerPoint, Excel. I taught all those. And so I was a business teacher. I will tell people that I taught kids in theory, you know, because I taught business, but I didn't own a business. So everything I taught was out of a textbook and in theory. And then all of a sudden I start my own business.
Living it. Now you're living it.
Living it. And I will tell you, you know, those textbooks aren't always correct. You know, I would tell you that, you know, living the real world, it's a lot easier to say it than to do it. You know, and I take that, you know, when we have parents that are, I try to be an advocate of the school district, you know, because there's people that sit in the stands and yell at a football coach or go to dinner and they're mad at the principal because of this happened or that happened. I'm like, you know, there's always more to the story than what you know. So
call me.
Yeah. And she's available, guys. Call her. She is available. And I will tell you, her team, assistant principals, one of my favorite assistant principals, me and Joe Mitchell intern. So when I was that intern, when I told you about that internship, Mitchell was also interning at that time. And so he's a good one as well. So what about the future of it? What do you see about the future of hey, is there anything big coming around the corner, or are we we're having enrollment, UIL enrollments coming out, I guess, what is that, next week? You know, me and you both from back from our coaching days, that was a big day. What did we turn in? What did we turn in?
Right. Well, we're still looking at that. I'm not sure, and I think you're talking about where will we land next year as far as 5A, 6A.
So to let everybody know, the state of Texas, for competition wise, and this has more to do with just athletics. This is UIL this has everything to do with UIL. People usually think whenever they're talking to me, UIL, I'm just thinking about football, but I'm not. It's
everything.
around the board. They look at your school's enrollment, not your attendance.
Correct.
Right? Because if it was attendance, we could definitely take a field trip next week.
Yes.
So it's enrollment on a certain day at the end of October.
Right.
And then in February, they will announce what district, what group you're going to compete against. And I think Hayes is right there on the borderline of 5A, 6A. Is that correct?
Yeah, we are. And it depends on what UIL decides to call 6A, and they have 2 divisions in 6A. But it depends on if they decide to change that, because they have high schools at 5,000 and 6,000 that are competing in 6A. Well, that's not fair if you're competing against a school with 2,400 kids and there's 6,000. Like, that's ridiculous. So, which we've made our sentiments known, and we call that day that you're referring to in October, Brad, we call that snapshot day.
Yep.
And that's for everything. That's for our free and reduced lunch. It determines how we're compared by TEA, A through F, like where we rate. They're going to choose 25 like schools that they consider like schools. I'll tell you, I don't always agree with the schools they choose. I'm like, that's not comparable, but okay. A lot of it has to do with enrollment, your numbers, and what they would refer to as how many free and reduced lunch students that you have. So yes, that day is the last day in October, that snapshot day. And yeah, we're riding that line right now. But
so where is enrollment? Where are we at in the ballpark? I know where are we?
Under 21 right now.
We're right around 21.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. I know when that's grown. When Johnson opened up, and some of our kids went to Johnson, we dropped all the way down into the 1900s.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just something.
We're being impacted by all of the construction that's happening around us, across the street, literally across the street with the new Plum Creek phase, Six Creeks, which is actually behind my subdivision, and then Anthem. They also built the Stagecoach.
Let me tell you, it's going to literally be at some point, and not too long a future, 150 at the gas station, almost all the way to Hayes City Store, is going to be subdivisions at some point. I mean, that there is a plan a lot of that dirt is now starting to be talked about as development. So you are going to see 150 really explode. And you've already seen it with Anthem growing in, Stagecoach going in. Six Creeks is going to be huge. People don't realize just how big Six Creeks subdivision is. So that's one reason when I was on the FBOC and we were having bond elections, I was for the bonds, because if we say no to the money, the kids are still coming. We have to improve. One thing that's going on at your school right now is remodeling the science labs.
Yes.
I was on FBOC when we decided to do that. I mean, those science labs were built in 1992 to 4, somewhere in there. Wow. And so we just needed more, better. Think about people's houses. They remodel their house. Well, if the science labs haven't been remodeled since 1992, they probably need a little bit of remodeling done. So that's one thing that was brought up.
Yeah, and it was so thank you for being on that committee, because our science labs our new science classrooms are amazing. Because there were previous issues, and just in anything with time and age, we were having drainage issues. So we weren't able to do the correct labs because we couldn't properly drain things that needed to be drained. And so a lot of our labs were happening outside, like Mr. Matthews and Mr. Fain are infamous for the Great Pumpkin, which is coming up, the Great Pumpkin Labs that all happened outside because we didn't have the space for those labs and the correct ventilation to
Yep.
make sure that everybody was safe. So now we have that, and it's really exciting and it's beautiful. And we're still under construction because we're finishing the other side of those labs that are happening on this side of the school in the A wing. And we're also getting brand new AC units. So that affects all of us. That should be done, hopefully, with great prayers by the summertime. And we're in talks for our new weight room that's occurring. And there's also a cover that's going to be going over just to kind of like bring bales, bread, gym, kind of bring all that together with the new weight room that will be sitting back there. So, safety's always here. So like finding ways to keep that gated and to gate that off to ensure that our students are more taken
Could you
care of.
imagine being the principal back so those of y'all that don't know, I went to Hayes High School, graduated in 1999. Yeah. And there was two, we used to walk. So Hayes High School hasn't always looked the way it looks now.
Oh no.
It used to be, so they basically demolished the whole school and rebuilt it. And you had to walk outside from wing to wing. So you had a math wing, English wing, and every student walked outside into the common areas in between classes. Well, there was no covered walkways. And two of my classmates got hit by lightning in 94, 95. One of them he's out there. Those of y'all watching this that went to high school, one of them was nicknamed Sparky, still to this day, because he got hit by lightning. So two students.
That's terrifying.
One of them was probably one of the best volleyball players at the time, probably still one of the best volleyball players to play at Hayes. And she was in the hospital a long time because when she fell, I think a tooth got lodged in her. And so it was but could you imagine being the principal and that going? I mean, wow.
That's awful.
Yeah. So Hayes is definitely growing, and it's an old school built in, the original school was built in the 60s. And so, it's just an evolving, and times change, like the ROTC thing, having a gun range into it. You just need to have a committee on school to communicate. To give you an example, Brooklyn was in dance at Barton Middle School, and the middle school dance at that time was practicing in the cafeteria. And so I went to the FBOC and said, hey, Barton Middle, I was at Wallace with Mr. Mitchell, and he showed me the dance classroom at Wallace. And basically all they did was they busted the wall down in between two classrooms, put a new flooring in the classroom, put some mirrors and a bar, and turned it to a dance studio. And so I went to the FBOC. It was like, listen, there's no dance practice facility for the kids at Barton. They're in the cafeteria, they're in the gym, there's no mirrors, and so they recently got a new dance classroom just because the community finds out because not, I think when you're there every day, you don't quite notice the need, but yet whenever you step away from something and it's the outside looking in, you can get some. So I love the fact that Hayes has allowed community members to come to those lunches, to see what's going on in the school. And I know next week we're having an awards banquet for kids. My daughter, I got an email saying that Brooklyn got invited. We got invited to an awards banquet for her grades. So, hey, but involving the community in school is always, because I've worked at schools to where, we worked with their kids all day long, but the parents weren't really invited or involved very much. And so that's something that I want to hand it to you and your team of always keeping the community and the parents welcome and involved in the school.
Absolutely. And that it's very important. We're all in this together, right? Like our most precious gifts are in this room and I mean in this school. And I know that parents entrust us with their most precious items every day, and they're precious to me too. And so voice and thoughts, like we're open to ideas. We don't pretend to know everything. But we always want to be inclusive and thinking outside of the box, which I know you and I were talking about earlier, but just, always thinking about other ways to contribute to 100% Hayes. Like we want 100% of our students involved in something here. And if I can say, and I want to say yes as much as I possibly can. So if that means that we have a new group, a new club, we have so many clubs. And again, if you're going to be involved and you want to be here, yes. So, I'm again, great ideas come from everywhere. So we do everything we can to hear that and make sure that we're doing everything we can to make that possible for our kids.
All right, so we're on to the last question. I asked every one of our guests this last question. What is your answer on this one? I mean, I could probably interview you next year and the answer could change. But as of today, what is your favorite book and what is your favorite quote?
So I love Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. I always have. I don't know why. It's one of my all-time favorites. But that's like fun reading. My go-to readings are anything Simon Sinek has written, The Tipping Point, The 7 Habits of Effective People. Like I love Simon Sinek. If you don't know who that is, he just gets straight to the point about leadership and how you lead and why you lead. And my favorite quote is every child, every day. And so just that's my lens when I'm thinking about things that we're doing here or what we want to do. How does that impact every child every day? So we don't take a step without thinking about that. We don't make decisions without thinking about that. We're not perfect. Unfortunately, we're not perfect. But if we mess something up, we want to fix that as fast as we possibly can and make sure that we're completely relationship focused all the time. And that's with students, parents, community members. Like our community here is our focus, and we always want to make sure that the steps that we're taking are with that lens in mind.
There you go. Well, hey, folks, she is Tina Salazar, the principal of Hayes High School, Jack C. Hayes High School, the Hawks. They have a football game tonight. Does the volleyball team play tonight?
They do. They're in Liberty Hill.
Band is in the middle of competitions. I drove by the stadium and there was a big competition there not too long ago. So there's a lot going on right now at Hayes High School. Please know that she is open to you. She's an open principal. Her door's open. Going to answer the emails, going to answer the phone calls. And we would like to thank you, Tina, for joining us today on the Dad Pod. Once again, this is the Dad Pod with Brad Alexander, presented to you by the Alexander Home Team. And we are just trying to build, like she said so many times, relationship. We're just trying to build relationships one conversation at a time. So until next week, y'all have a good one this weekend.